Try this again. That'll be better. All right. So let's see, people are coming back. All right. So see if we have any questions. Oh, no, she was saying, what about the action systems? No, I did not come up with those. I don't know who to refer to either, so I'll have to let you know that one later, Kathleen. I came up with it in terms of my view of it and how to look at it with what's over and underdeveloped, but I will look for that reference for you. All right, so I am going to share my screen again. So it looks like we have 6 people on a phone and the rest of you are all on your computer. Welcome everyone. I see lots of familiar faces. We have a big group. That's awesome. All right. Thanks, Kathleen. Okay, so let's share my screen. All right. So we went through this already, right? Catching it. Yeah. So the next slide. Okay. I'm not sure if we did the last one. No. Okay. So the 5th C is connecting it to the past or present. And so what we want to do is have a hypothesis of that, and then how it's been helpful in any way that it gets in the way now. So that's what we're looking for. And it shows that I'm recording, right? Okay, good. I'm paranoid. There was a time when Zoom failed me and it didn't record, and now I check it like an OCD person. Tori's she actually checks for me, which is really nice. And so one of the important aspects of training and also of therapy that is necessary when you're working and you're using the view of attachment is attunement. And so attunement actually means to bring into a harmonious or responsive relationship. And this is the right brain nonverbal attachment. And so I actually have the reference for this right here. So I'll put it up on the screen. It's Alan Shore. This is an excellent book, The Science of the Art of Psychotherapy. Alan Shore is awesome. And so it's right brain nonverbal attachment that we're talking about. And it's implicit affective interactions. And so it is connecting with those parts of the brain that are not the prefrontal cortex necessarily. It's the emotional aspects of that. And this is a regulatory function. It's a way that we regulate. And it's a way that we regulate with our clients. It's also a way that we regulate in training, which is very important, that we use this wonderful tool of attunement to help regulate each other and together. And as infants, it's actually the only way that they know how to regulate, which means to regulate, I'm talking about to go from being upset to being calm again. And so it's through the caregiver's system that the attunement with the infant that they're able to regulate. It's only external for a while for them. That's why if someone, even if it doesn't look like trauma or it's not intended to be trauma, just being in an incubator can be traumatic and have a long-lasting effect because the infant's nervous system is regulated through people, not through machines. And so that can be something that needs to be processed. And this is not just in terms of feelings. So this attunement isn't just about how they're feeling, but it's also noticing what's happening. It's noticing the small things. It's noticing the body language. It's noticing the facial movements and features. It's getting a sense from everything. And so, as from many previous types of therapy, there's an unlearning that has to happen, which is listening to the story and getting more information about the story. In this way of working with a client, you're getting information from lots of different sources, not just from the story. The story is actually probably the least important part of the information that you're getting from them. And so what attunement can help you do is modulate. And so what we're doing with EMDR is we're going as fast enough to heal, but slow enough to remain safe. And that's really important. We don't want to delay the healing, and we don't want to just do things that don't need to be done, but we want to go slow enough that they remain safe. And the therapist-client relationship is a container, and regulating arousal through the 8 phases is necessary, and that's through attunement and modulation. And the therapist is a neurobiological regulator, and that's my little wrapper. And at other times I've actually talked about this, doing a rap song, but I'll let Tori do that today. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
If anyone would like to raise their hand and come on and do a rap song about being a neurobiological regulator, then we'll let you do that today, all right? It'll be our guest appearance. And then in EMDR therapy, training and attachment, did somebody raise their hand? Tori? I see something blinking up there. Kathleen, you can do it. You don't know anyone. Yeah, I think that automatically volunteers you. Kathleen's in Denver. Hi, Kathleen. Give Spencer a kiss for me. So what we're looking at with EMDR therapy training and attachment is whatever your client does will happen in your office, and this is an opportunity. Whatever happens in processing is actually also likely what happened at the time. And if you can just remember that, it's so much easier than getting frustrated and trying to make the client do something or thinking, oh, shoot, this isn't working. And so if we don't catch this, if we don't see that these old patterns, old triggers, old relational issues, the answer or the defense comes up, the therapist's own patterns, the therapist's own old patterns and old triggers and relational issues, they kind of fit all together in the therapy. If we don't see that, it's like a dog chasing his tail. We just keep going round and round, or we think that what they're doing is actually about the moment, so they get irritated or they pressure you and want you to do this faster, and then you feel like, oh, it's just because I'm not fast enough. If you can just turn it just a little bit and think, oh, I wonder if this is what happened at the time. It's so powerful. And then creating secure attachment. This is a silhouette of me and Spencer when he was a baby. We had done at Cedar Point. And so it's a way of viewing the past patterns as an adaptation. It's what they needed to do at the time to keep safe or stay attached. And so those patterns are going to show up now in your office. And if we can just look, I wonder how that developed, or I wonder how that was needed at the time to keep them attached or to keep them safe. How does it show up now? And what triggers show up now? Because that's what we're doing actually with EMDR and with the whole approach to therapy, is helping to create secure attachment so that the clients can actually leave your office and feel like they're okay. And what is the longing? That's an important part of understanding the secure attachment. What did the client always long for that they may have not gotten? And it also helps to regulate shame. This attunement and understanding, and it helps to let go of shame, which can be a major block when people have early trauma. And so when it doesn't work, when that secure attachment doesn't work, the child becomes defensively avoidant of contact, appears indifferent about separation and reunion. And so that will show up too in your office, right? And the child may become preoccupied with the attachment figure, clinging and anxious about separation and exploration. And so that may show up in your office too. Maybe you've seen that. And this becomes a pattern of intimate relationships. And so this is what your primary care physician will say. Try cutting down on the cling peaches. Or maybe that's what Dr. Lou would say. And so what we are actually doing with EMDR and this approach is repair. So we're repairing. And that's the good news about attachment. And I was so happy to hear this, that as a mother, you can make mistakes. And as long as you can repair them, that actually makes the secure attachment. So mistakes are actually necessary for secure attachment. I'm sure that's good news for your parents, all of your parents, and for you parents out there. And so we're looking at what is the needed experience. And we're creating the experience in different stages of the process. So this is kind of an overview, like overarching the EMDR therapy. What we're looking at, how can we create that experience? And we're just thinking, it's like we have this hypothesis in our mind about it. And then we have an opportunity, we have what are called cognitive interweaves of repair. And so we have an opportunity when the processing gets stuck to offer a cognitive interweave that may help with the repair. And we can use that across the 3 prongs, which for our prongs are the past, present, and future that we're looking at, but we're always looking at now, remember? What's happening now in the past, what's happening now when they bring up the future, or what's happening now when they remember the present things that bug them. And then in the integration and repair, so at the end of processing, what do they still need to be able to feel like they are good enough just as they are? And so this is something that has not previously been a part of the EMDR basic trainings, and I think they're adding it now to the HAP trainings, which I hope so. It's because it's very necessary. If you're going to be working with people who have experienced trauma, you really need to understand the window of tolerance. And so the window of tolerance was adapted from Siegel, and it's also used with Pat Ogden's sensory motor psychotherapy. It's used in a lot of different body-centered psychotherapies and also trauma therapies. And the window, the optimal level of arousal in the center there, where it says optimal arousal zone, is the only place that learning can happen, and it's the only place that healing can happen. And so what's kind of exciting about the window of tolerance is that as we notice this, notice the hyperarousal coming or the hypoarousal coming. What you're seeing is a window into the past also. And so this is an adaptation too. So remembering that the ability to dissociate is quite important, especially if you, like I use an example in the training of being eaten by a bear. And at our cabin in Tustin, Michigan, we happen to have some black bear there. And so I'm hoping they're afraid of me too, and they go out of their window of tolerance if they see me. But if you happen to engage in a bear, the first thing, well, if first of all, you're walking along in this optimal zone and you see a bear, well, it's very adaptive for you to become hyper aroused, right? So it's fight, flight, or freeze up there. And so the first thing you're going to do is probably freeze, and then, if possible, flight. And if the flight doesn't work, then the fight will come in, like grab a stick and try to fight the bear off. And if that fight doesn't work, guess where you're going next? Right down to the hypoaroused, which is where you are feeling it's the submit and collapse and the feigned death. And this happens automatic, so it's a good thing because we don't have to think. And actually, we can't think at that time. And when this is happening, the language part of your brain is actually offline. And so as you go from the fight and flight didn't work down to the hypoaroused, you and the bear, then you're feigning death. It's your last chance to survive, right? So he doesn't want to eat something that's dead, so he might just go away and become not interested in you anymore. But if he does decide to eat you anyway, the good news is when you're down there in hypoarousal, you can't feel the bear eating you. And that's the beauty of the window of tolerance. That's the beauty of dissociation, is at the time when something horrible is happening, we can't feel it. And so when it becomes a problem, though, is as something that's even, for some people, even just being around a person triggers them out of their window of tolerance. And so if someone has a lot of abuse, they're constantly reacting as if they're in danger now. And that's a sign that those traumatic memories are stuck in the brain in a way that hasn't effectively moved with our information processing system. And so that's what we're doing with EMDR. What we want to do, though, is constantly keep an eye on this so that we can keep them in that window of optimal arousal. And we're using the somatic resources of noticing, first of all, what is needed, and then giving that to them to keep them in that window of tolerance as they process. This is a hugely important part of EMDR processing. And this is what is the difference between someone making it worse by just triggering someone and they're out of the window of tolerance, experiencing a flashback while they process. It doesn't process. And so that's why we don't do that with EMDR. So all of the beware of EMDR things that are out there are mostly because people are doing this wrong and they haven't learned how to regulate, or they haven't learned about the window of tolerance, and they're not keeping that dual awareness. That's a really necessary part of the EMDR process. And so that's what Francine calls it, is dual awareness. It's keeping one foot in the present and one foot in the past, which is both feet are in the present, but it's remembering that thing while remembering you're here. And so that's what the window of tolerance is about. So we're looking at this constantly throughout all of the phases of EMDR therapy. And then we have somatic resources. And so the reason we bring somatic resources into the training is because they're necessary if you're going to be working with trauma. And they can also be used for attachment. And you can by using somatic resources, you're getting information as well as helping them to develop some abilities. And so as we use these resources for attachment, we're looking at the client's answer, what's over and underdeveloped. And so an example of that might be boundaries. For some, boundaries are overdeveloped, some are underdeveloped. We might look at auto-regulation or regulating with others. Connection. What is their ability to have connection or even have eye contact for some clients? And the expression of will. So are they able to know what they want or ask for what they want? Or is there more of a passive way of doing that? It's overdeveloped. And so looking at boundaries, as we're assessing boundary issues, it might be that they're over-boundaried and don't allow connection, or under-boundaried, can't say no or set limits. And so we can practice boundary exercises. I have a bag of my son's old ties they had to wear on sports days. And so we use those for boundary exercises, or you can use a scarf, or it could just be a boundary exercise of just noticing what happens when you, for some people, saying no or just doing this. And so it can be very scary for people who've had a lot of trauma, early sexual abuse, for them to actually put up a boundary. And so practicing with these in the preparation phase, or looking at these, using these to gather information, can be very helpful. You can also have them, backing up their chair or standing and walking towards you. How close is just right, and how do they know? Or experiences of turning away, and what do they notice as you turn away from them? Or dropping, holding on to the connection with a scarf. And what do you notice as I drop my end? And what do you notice as you drop your end and I'm hanging on? What feels just right for the tension? There's lots of games, boundary games you can play with clients to get information and to develop resources. And so the somatic resources for trauma are helping them with energy regulation, bringing them back in that optimal level of arousal for the window of tolerance. And what I like about this is they're specific to the need of the client. So we're not just throwing a resource at them and saying, here, the safe place, the calm, safe place that Francine uses in the book is helpful and it's useful, but it doesn't always work, right? Because some clients can't do that. They don't have a good way of calming themselves down when they bring up an image. And for some clients, even the word calm or safe takes them out of their window of tolerance. And so you're working with, so to be able to work with somatic resources is a very important part of it. So what we're doing is have it be specific to their need at that time, and also getting some information and practicing these ahead of time with them. And we're helping them move or change energy or arousal. And so another one is centering or heart connection. This can be used for both trauma and attachment. And it's the practice of shifting from their head to their heart. Some clients who are very intellectual or very analytical, and they have a hard time processing or connecting with any emotion. And we actually now know that there are that the heart has kind of its own brain system. And so to be able to connect with the heart and to be able to feel can be an important somatic resource. And so one way of doing that is feeling their center, having one hand on the belly and another on your heart, breathing in and out and noticing your center. And then grounding can be for too much energy, anxiety, being too much in their head, and ways of grounding, just having them push down with their feet, feeling themselves on the floor. It could even end up by standing up, feeling their whole body grounded, or laying on the floor with all points of their body. And so with kids, you can make this fun, rolling around or really feeling the parts of their body on the floor with them. So in summary about what we're looking at with the somatic and attachment-focused EMDR is a path of therapy. And so it's a way of viewing the client, a way of viewing the therapy process, a way of finding the client's needs and answers. And it's nonviolent and compassionate. And it helps the client discover how the adaptations of the past are likely a strength as well as a limitation. And we're finding the memories that are stuck and helping transform them. And what we're actually doing is transforming the brain and all aspects of that. So the brain actually as a way of just being the control center for other things. And under all of the character types, the answer is the authentic self and the shining star, and that's what we're looking for. So just as more of an introduction or a deeper way of seeing what we do, some of the things that are different about our EMDR trainings, maybe I could take some questions first before I go into this, or whatever. So I'll do this first and I'll take questions. Might as well get through it. Okay. So we should have time for questions if you have them, and I'll just get through my slides here. So, so we have a complete EMDR basic training, and it includes all of the 10 hours of consultation with one price, and it's IMDRIA approved. It was approved, we've been doing it for 1.5 years now, and we have which is a really important part of EMDR training. For those of you who are not yet trained in EMDR, there are some trainings out there that are not IMDRIA approved, and I believe PESI has one that's like a 2-day training or something shorter. IMDRIA is our professional organization, and so if your training is not IMDRIA approved, you can't go on to become certified, or you can't go on to become an approved consultant. And there are some advanced trainings that you aren't eligible to take because you haven't gone through an IMDRIA approved basic training. So it was a pretty stressful process of getting this training, our basic training, IMDRIA approved. It took about 1 year, and I don't know if Brandy Mitchell is out there in the audience, but she was a big part of why this training, our basic training, was developed. She is in Rogers, Arkansas, and she requested that I come and do a training there. So we offer discounts for interns and nonprofit, and so it actually becomes cheaper than HAP trainings because we include the 10 hours of consultation, and some trainings have people pay for those on their own. We also have like continued learning, which is certification packages. So you can do continued learning with this model, and then you can go on to become an approved consultant and a training assistant like Tori is now doing. She just finished her certification process. And what's nice about that is the approved consultant program there's no money involved, and you can become an approved consultant by coming and helping with the trainings as a facilitator. And then helping with you do 5 hours of observing me doing consultation for certification group, or five groups, so it's 10 hours, and then 10 hours of me observing you as a consultant and giving you feedback. It's a pretty intensive program, and so you end up with a lot of training at the end of it. So if you go through our certification package, not all certification programs are alike. Ours is pretty intensive. It has only 2 people now per group to 1 consultant. And so then after that, there's a possibility of becoming a trainer. And we're really hoping to develop some of those too in the next year or so. So that's a little bit about the Personal Transformation Institute. And so some of the basic training differences are it's a complete training, I already said that, and having expert trainers and assistants. So, you know, with some other programs, particularly HAP, I mean, there were times when I was requested, but you don't really know who you're going to be getting as a trainer with that type of program. All of our assistants are put through a lot of training before their assistants. And so, and I've had a lot of experience as a trainer. And you also have access to training videos and demos. So after you go through the basic training, you have, we have a members section on the website, and there are all the training videos there and demos there. And you have access to those so you can learn at your own pace. And then that was a really important part of this training that was very important to me, because 6 days of training really isn't enough. And 6 days of training when you're practicing doing the EMDR method can be kind of overwhelming and difficult to retain all the information. So having those videos to be able to go back to was very important. And then having community and communication is important. So we don't leave you after the training or after the advanced trainings. We have an email group, a Google group, and we're going to develop a Facebook page, and we're doing lots of new things, and we have lots of opportunity for advanced trainings. I'm really enjoying the webinar way of doing advanced trainings. It just feels like easier for everyone. You can be home in your pajamas and watching and participating. So we have continued support and learning opportunities, and we also have the discount, like I said. And so that brings me to the last thing, that this is something that is very important to me. It's something I've been thinking about and wanting to do, but developing the basic training was such a big job. And then getting the trainings just right has been a huge job. And so writing the manual was huge. And we've had, last year alone, we had 11 trainings. And this year, I don't know how many we've had, but 1 or 2 a month. And so it's been great. It's been exciting, but I haven't had time to develop this. And now I do. So I'm starting to get some help. Tori's a big help, and I have other help that's awesome. And so Genius Boot Camp. And so what is Genius Boot Camp? It's an intensive, life-transforming exploration and fun. And so this is an intensive program that we're offering. And the purpose of it is to help you find your inner genius and your personal shining star. It's a 6-month intensive program designed for people who have lost their passion for work, feel beaten up or controlled by outside forces, feel stuck, and I've actually heard these things from other people, that's why I'm thinking of you out there, feel stuck and like the life has been sucked out of you, and are ready to take a leap. So that's an important aspect of this. This isn't something you're going to sign your girlfriend up for, okay? It's something that you have to want to do for yourself, because it's a pretty intensive program. And so what will we do in Genius Boot Camp? The good news out there, I know there are a few of you out there who are not EMDR trained. You do not have to be EMDR trained to do the Genius Boot Camp. We have some people who are interested that are in other areas of work who are going to be joining us with this. So what we'll do is assist you in discovering your passion and how to offer it to the world. And so this is a very important part, and it's very close to my heart. As I was developing this new training model of EMDR, there were so many times, and that's why I thank Brandy Mitchell for this, because she kept on me about coming and doing a training. And finally, after I exhausted everything else, I said, well, the only thing I could do is write my own training. And she said, well, how long will that take? And I said, well, probably about a year. And she said, okay, let's book it for next year. So she's like an angel to me. But I had to get over a lot of my own limitations in that process. Looking back, I see how I made it so much harder for myself, and it was based on my limitations. I'm not saying I'm through my limitations, I still have them, but I just have a real passion for being willing to be out there with your limitations, with our flaws, being authentic. And when you do that, it makes a difference in people's lives. And so it's not just for you, but for the world. So what we're going to be doing is giving you specific tools to break through memories, lies, and limitations, offer support and accountability for whatever transformation is in order. And we're going to have activities designed to create conditions for allowing your inner star to shine. And we're going to be looking deeply into the answer and how it helps and how it is getting in your way now. And so what we're going to be doing, the Genius Bootcamp is brand new on the website today. And so for 24 hours, we're going to have a Genius Bootcamp coupon. And this offering is for 8 weeks of 2 hours a week, meeting 2 hours a week, and then in between doing more work. So it's not just the 2 hours a week. You're going to have assignments. And then after those 8 weeks, we're going to meet 2 hours every month for 4 months. So it's a 6-month length of time. And so for 24 hours, your coupon is going to be half off, and the coupon code is GENIUS. And so if you're interested in finding out more about the Genius Bootcamp, you will get to have half off and join us. And so you can look into that, and no EMDR training is needed. So now I will stop sharing my screen and go to your questions. Tori, do we have some questions?
Yeah. The first one was how to tie over underdeveloped tendencies back to a client and explain it to them.
Ah, great question. So you'll be getting this, that goes back to the 5 C's. So the most important thing is that you start seeing what's over and underdeveloped for your client, observing it over and over again, and that you begin to have a hypothesis of how it was helpful. And then becoming curious about it and saying, oh, so it looks like, so it seems like disappearing has been very helpful for you, or whatever you're seeing. And then it's really important to really understand how that was helpful. And then once you do that, then you just say, well, is there any time that gets in the way? And so it might be, like for me, one of my major limitations has been being independent. And so being able to ask for help has been really difficult. And being able to effectively get help, even if I ask for it, seems to be difficult. And so so for me, it might sound like, oh, so it seems like you're really good at taking charge of things and doing things for yourself and figuring things out. How did you learn how to do that? And then I might say, well, I've been doing that for a long time. That's because I was the youngest of 10 kids, and my dad died when I was 2. And basically, I was raised by a pack of wolves. So I had to learn how to be independent really quickly, or I was going to be eaten by the wolves. So, so that gives you a lot of information. So I hope that was helpful.
Someone asked about the latest research.
All right. What do they want to know? Let's see.
You talk about the latest research, but I think that they are
Oh, okay. All right. Any other questions? I have one question. Joanna said, thanks for the break. I took a walk, but she's not ready to wrap yet.
Two people had specific questions about them.
Okay. 2 people had specific questions about.
Yeah, if you look on the chat, Ellen, she asked, you were a HAP trainer.
Oh,
Your consultation.
nice.
You see it?
Okay. Okay, let's see. Yes, you'll get the slides. The slides will be on my website. Um, the webinar, yeah, Carol had to leave. Okay. So any other questions? Could you talk about the latest research? Is Jeremy still there?
No.
Okay. All the latest research you can find on EMDRIA's website. And there's some really exciting research. So part of what I talked about with Peg Yanni is part of the latest research on the mechanism of action of how EMDR works. And that's been a big question and controversial about, do the eye movements make a difference? And we're finding out the eye movements do make a difference. So that's some really exciting stuff.
Someone wants you to talk about the 5 C's. Someone else wants you to talk about the certification process more.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, the certification process is, you can find that also on EMDRIA. And so what we offer is a certification package. And so the package is after you complete an EMDR basic training. And the basic training is 6 days or 40 hours of training plus 10 hours of consultation. And so some trainings have part of those hours in the training weekend, but you have to complete all that to complete the basic training. After that, you can go on for certification. And the certification is 20 hours of consultation additional and 12 hours of an advanced training. So what we offer in the certification package is a 12-hour webinar and 20 hours of consultation, which are once a month with 2 people per 1 consultant. And so you're going to learn a lot about this stuff in that time because it's all a part of how we teach EMDR. So you'll learn this attachment model with the certification process. And yeah, so let's get to the 5 C's here first. I'll put that up again so she can see those as we answer the questions. Share my screen. So these are the 5 C's: the catching it, curiosity, collaborating, contacting, and connecting. So it's a way of seeing it happening over and over again. Begin noticing how it's happening, then become curious about it. That curious part is a real important part of this. We're also used to working too hard. So just being curious about, so I see this happening. I wonder how that's helpful. And then collaborating, so joining it, really understanding. It's a defense, remember. So, oh, of course. Yeah, this is really helpful. And then contacting it. So it seems like, and then you might notice, seems like you're really good at whatever it is, fill in the blank. Doing things for yourself, disappearing, reaching out for help, setting good, clear boundaries with becoming angry, whatever it is. And then you begin connecting it to the past. I wonder how it's been helpful in the past by saying things like, when did you first learn how to do that? How did you get to do that, so well? So I hope that was helpful. Okay. All right. Let's see what other we got. Okay. Yes, Ellen, I remember you. Yes, you would be eligible for the certification package. Oh, some of the adaptations such as brain spotting. I haven't had the brain spotting training. I did go to his day long of David Grand's at the conference on brain spotting. I found it very interesting. but I don't know enough about it to really give much information. And Imdria approved CEUs. Yeah, so we have, all of that will be found on the website, Kathleen. We have, and all of the past webinars are going to be available through distance learning very shortly. As soon as I get a quiz made and sent to Imdria, they'll all be on the website and available for distance learning. So whatever I offered previously. And knee tapping, well, sometimes, you know, there's a reason we practice tapping, and that's if the eye movements are not working. So since the research was done using eye movements, we recommend eye movements, but you have to do what works, right? So sometimes eyes are hurting, or sometimes eyes, you know, we can't do that for whatever reason, and we find that tapping does also work, but it's just not where the research has been done. All right, so let's see.
When I spell CEUs for today's webinar.
Yeah, we don't have CEUs for today's webinar. Maybe in the future I'll do that, but it's a lot of work to get the CEUs for Imdria credits anyway, but no CEUs. Let's see. The hand paddles, yeah. I mean, I use the hand paddles. I find it to be useful. It's just that the research hasn't been done with those. Yes, there's a lot of you out there, so I'm trying to answer your questions, but let's see. Bilateral music, my concern about the bilateral music, even though I've had David Grann's CDs and I use them myself for relaxation, or I have in the past, I'm afraid it'll change their state. And so I don't want to bring something in that they could have an association to. I just don't think it's necessary. I find that complicating it, and you know, isn't usually a good idea in my opinion. So clients usually say it makes them dizzy. My guess is if that was your experience, Lydia, sometimes that's what we do. So lots of people have eye movements that, you know, use eye movements without being dizzy. That does work. So Alexandra, you're welcome. All right. Okay, what time? So it's 10 till. Any other questions? All right, let's see what we have in here. Can you say more about the certification? Oh, what is your website? Wow, that's a great question. Okay, good. Personaltransformationinstitute.com. Also, debkennard.com will take you there, or emdrtherapybasictraining.com. They're all the same. Yeah, so you can find that. Also, I'm on Facebook, and it's Personal Transformation Institute. All right. Any other questions? Okay. I took your HAP training in 2012. Would you be eligible? Yeah, anyone is eligible. If you completed the basic training, you're eligible for the certification package. Yeah, you don't have to have taken, you don't even have to have taken my training. You just have to have completed an EMDR basic training. I'll put the website up there. Here it is. Yeah, so here is the website. So you have that. Yeah, Latonia, remember you? Yeah. How do you address the idea of, whoops, I lost it. That exposure rather than bilateral stimulation is what's central. Yeah, that's a great question about exposure rather than bilateral stimulation. Well, that's the exciting thing about the new research, is that he was doing the EEGs, and there's lots of brain scan research out there now that can help us, that what we've seen. So I was actually trained in exposure therapy prior to being trained in EMDR, so I know what you're talking about. And what I found with exposure was that it's kind of draining for both the therapist and the client. But what we're seeing with the new research is that it's actually the eye movements are what help the information to move in the brain. So the activity of the when they bring up the memory prior to doing EMDR reprocessing with eye movements, that it lit up in the emotional part of the brain. And then as they did the eye movements, that activity lit up in the prefrontal cortex, which is demonstrating with research what we see all the time. It goes from feeling really like you feel it and there's a high level of disturbance, and then it goes in one session, often it will go to feeling like it's just a part of the past now. So yeah. Yeah, there's lots of, somebody said, are there opportunities for EMDRIA approved CEU webinars? Yes, I have them all the time. If you go on my website, you can actually sign up to be on the newsletter or to get notifications of things that are happening in the future. And so we have lots of EMDRIA approved activities. And upcoming advanced training webinars, yes, I will have those on the website. All right. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share. All right, so it looks like, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, it's on the chat.
Okay, stop sharing now. Everyone got the website. All right, what do we got from Aaron? Oh, it's Tori. All right. Well, can you go back and elaborate more and give suggestions of how to undo those mistakes, like not getting the history of the answer first, and also the mistake of the therapists make when the therapist starts feeling a little unsure and anxious when the clients get stuck and nothing is coming up for them. Yeah, so I guess the undoing, there's no undoing, but that would be like a way to see the repair happen. And so it's okay to make mistakes. People make mistakes, right? And so to just be able to say, you know, I think maybe we should just slow down here. How about if we slow down and just really look into what's happening, how this nothing that's happening is an answer. And so, or how it's helpful to even just to go blank, that might be an answer. So it's just kind of slowing down and becoming curious and using those 5 C's. I think that can be really helpful. And maybe the next webinar, we'll just go really deeply into that process, because understanding that answer can be really helpful. You're welcome, Lisa and Phyllis. Thank you. And Rhonda. All right. Okay, let's see, another question. How can we listen to your webinar again? I couldn't figure out, well, my site, it's not on there yet. So I'm just recording it right now, and I will have to download it and put it on the website. It will be on the home page. I'm going to put it right on the front page just to keep it easy for people. All right, and it's going to be on there for 24 hours. I'll put it on for a day. Yeah, you will have access to the PowerPoint. I'm going to try to download that also as a document with it. You're welcome, anonymous viewer. All right, any other questions? All right. Yeah, good. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to be downloading this, and hopefully if all goes well, it will be downloaded and put on the website this afternoon. So I will also send out through Zoom some instructions that has the website on it. That was not a good thing to do, not put that on there. Okay, so if everybody's, no, we got a raised hand. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. And if you have other questions, you can, I think you all have my email. Email can sometimes get lost, so we will guide you to the Google group. All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so everybody take care. See you later.